Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be going over a bunch of stuff coming out in 2023 and what I'm most excited for. And 2023 looks like it's going to be pretty insane for PC peripherals, and we've already seen some really cool announcements for a bunch of OEMs, so I figured I'd make a quick video going over what I'm excited for and all the cool stuff to look forward to. But yeah, let's get right into it. Alrighty, let's start off with Pulsar Gaming Gear. Now, Pulsar Gaming Gear has a bunch of announcements. They went really ham this year, which is awesome to see. Starting off, we have the Xlite line. Now, the Xlite lineup is getting a complete overhaul. They're adding on a large size, so they'll be launching the V3s with a small, medium, and large. All of them will be running with 3395 sensors and their own branded optical switches. Another thing is really interesting is they are going to get rid of the hole punch design. So all the new Xlite lines are going to be in the same shell, kind of like regular solid shell design, which is going to be very interesting to see if that affects the weight. But seeing how the X2 is still a very light mice, I think it'll still be fine. Speaking of the X2, Pulsar is also releasing a new shape in the form of the X2-H, which is a spin-off of the obvious X2 design. This design is going to have a larger hump towards the rear of the mouse instead of the middle. It's going to be the same ambient design as the X2, just with the bigger hump towards the back. This one will be releasing in a small and medium size. There's been no information on what sensor this will be using or the clicks. I'm going to assume it's going to be using the same as the previous X2, but we'll have to wait till launch to see. And as if that wasn't enough, there is also going to be another version of the X2 called the X2-A, or otherwise known as the X2 Ambi, which is going to be the X2 shell with the, I'm assuming, a 3395 and optical switches with buttons on the both sides, which will be quite interesting because this is a direct competitor to the Logitech G Pro Superlight. Now, Logitech hasn't said anything about what they're coming out with 2023. It'll be interesting to see what mouse is going to be kind of the king here, but Pulsar is really kind of gunning for it. We're trying to go in for the top dog here, which will be very interesting to see what happens. Now, Pulsar hasn't given much information as to the final specs for the X2-H and the X2-A. I'm going to assume that, much like the redesigned Xlite V3, they're going to be using the 3395 and optical switches. However, we're going to have to wait until the mouse comes out to find out for sure, but overall they look like they're going to be very solid mice. And as if that wasn't enough, Pulsar also announced that they will be releasing a new ES series of mice, which are their esports grade or pro grade versions of the Xlite V3, X2-H, and X2-A. All of these mice are going to have a redesigned shell and a redesigned base with a small OLED screen on the bottom, kind of similar to the SteelSeries Prime Plus. These are also going to ship with 4K wireless polling and 8K wired polling out of the box. Looking at you, Razer. It comes in the box. You don't have to buy a separate dongle for it. Alright, take notes. Now, Pulsar did not say anything about the final specs for these units. However, again, since they're going to be boasting the 4K wireless and the 8K wired polling rate, I'm going to assume these are also going to be using 3395s, and I'm going to assume they will also be using the same optical switches, maybe a higher grade. We don't know for sure, but I'm sure closer to the lineup we will get more information. Alright, and just a quick note about the ES Xlite V3 here. Pulsar has said that this mouse is going to be releasing in the 1.5 size only right now. I'm assuming that's the new large size, so I just want to quickly note that. It'll be very interesting to see how these ES mice perform in the market because obviously Pulsar is going against Logitech with the X2-A SE, trying to compete with the Superlight, and they're also going against Zowie-esque kind of shapes with this Xlite V3 SE. It'll be really interesting to see how this actually works. I know for sure as of right now, they're going to probably take a lot of market share away from Zowie because Zowie's going to be stuck on those 3375 sensors. Again, there's nothing wrong with them, but in terms of the polling rate on the Xlite V3 ES is just going to be, you can't really counter that. There's nothing on the market against that right now in that shape. So it'll be really interesting to see how that turns out. I'm interested to see what happens with it. On top of all these other announcements, Pulsar also announced that they are going to be working on a new keyboard line to update their current line, and they are also working on another project called the Superglide XL and Large, which what I'm assuming, and based off of what I've seen around, this looks to be a SkyPad competitor, which will be very interesting. Now, I know there's other companies working on SkyPad clones right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Pulsar is the only company that's making a competitor that actually has experience in this area. I will say, with the Superglides and the issues with the Superglides slowing down, it'll be interesting to see if they can actually fix that on the Superglide XL, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. And overall, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with all these mice that they're announcing. With a lot of Pulsar's recent issues with QC, it's going to be very heavily dependent on how well they can do that, because if they can really lock down their QC, they're going to have a really great year because they have a lot of products that are going to be just perfect for a lot of people, and they're going to be taking a lot of market share away from other people. But if they have bad QC, they're going to turn into a glorious V2. So it will be interesting to see what happens this year. Again, I'm really excited to get my hands on the mice to try them out, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Alrighty, next up, I'm super excited about this one. The Pulsefire Haste V2 is finally coming. Now, for those of you who don't know, I had the Pulsefire V1 wired, and I loved that mouse. I absolutely loved that mouse. It was such a great budget option with great features, great reliability, literally zero complaints about that mouse, and I'm just super excited to see a new version coming out. So, similar to how the PH1, the PH2 will be releasing in a wired and wireless models. Both models of the PHV2 will be released with a solid shell design, so similar to Pulsar, the hole punch design is gone. They will also be using the same HyperX branded switches for the main clicks and a HyperX branded sensor, which is most likely a 3395 based off what we're seeing. The really cool feature that we're going to see on these, though, is that the wired mouse is boasting an 8K polling rate out of the box, which is absolutely crazy. Now, we don't know if the wireless one is going to be capable of 4K, seeing as wired has 8K, it would make sense that wireless has 4K. We don't know that yet, but we'll have to see when the mouse comes out. So the Pulsefire Haste V2 wired version is going to be coming in at around 53 grams, and it will most likely be using the same paracord as what we saw in the Pulsefire Haste version 1. This is awesome because the included paracord was actually really, really good, so I'm happy to see that come back again. Now, the Pulsefire Haste V2 will be a little heavier, going around 62 grams. It'll have a rated 100-hour battery life and will feature USB-C charging, which will be nice. Now, HyperX didn't specify whether the wireless Pulsefire will be capable of 4K, as I mentioned before. They also didn't really mention the battery life, so they say 100 hours, but if it's 4K polling rate available on the wireless, it's probably going to be a lot less than that, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. We also don't know if the wireless model is going to be capable of doing 4K polling or 8K polling when plugged in, since they're running the same sensor. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about this mouse, but we'll have to see what happens when they come out in April of 2023. Now, I just want to make a quick little note here. Yes, my experience with the Pulsefire V1 was really positive, and yes, I know there were QC issues with the sensors. On the wireless versions, there were some problems that needed to be addressed. However, if the Pulsefire Haste V2 fixes a lot of those QC issues and delivers the same value as the Pulsefire V1 did, that'd be awesome. I would still love to see the included extra grip tape and PTFE skates. Both of those were really, really, really solid on the first version. I'd love to see that again. I would also really love to see an ergo shape. Honestly, kind of surprised HyperX hasn't made an ergo shape yet, because for the price of right now, they don't really there's not really a lot of competition in the small ergo shape aside from Pulsar. So if HyperX did actually make a small, medium, and large version of the HyperX V2 and then made it an ergo, they would make an insane amount of money. They're sitting on a gold mine. So hey, if anyone from HyperX is watching, make an ergo, please, because you guys would do insanely well with that. Alrighty, and last but most certainly not least, we have VAXEE. Now, VAXEE is set to make some big waves this year with their wireless mice finally coming to market, especially with all the drama surrounding Zowie right now and their new wireless mice being stuck with the 3370. There's a lot of potential for VAXEE to really make a big dent in the market this year, which I'm really excited for. And on a personal note, my experience with VAXEE has been insanely positive. Their dedication to quality is insane, so I'm expecting their wireless tech to be extremely good. Again, we'll have to see when it actually hits the market, but we'll have to see what happens. But they have released a bunch of information regarding the design, the production of their wireless models. They made an entire, 2 videos about everything and going over everything on the mouse and that kind of stuff. So if you'd like to watch that whole thing, I'll link it in the description for you guys. I'm just going to cover the highlights, but I'd highly recommend you watch it if you're interested in learning the design process and all that kind of stuff. It's very informative. So what is going to be happening is VAXEE is going to be releasing their XE wireless, or the XEW first, and then the wireless versions of the NP01, NP10S, and the Outside X will be releasing hopefully later this year. Now, the XEW is going to be pretty much identical to the original XE, meaning it'll have the same Wano 70-gram switches for the main click, same scroll wheel, same side buttons, same removable USB-C connection, which is going to be used for charging in this scenario. However, the XEW is going to be a little heavier than the original XE. The XEW is going to be coming in at around 75 to 76.5 grams depending on your color, whereas the original XE's weight was around 67.5 grams. This is really not a deal breaker. I really don't understand why so many people are butthurt about the increase in in weight. You're going wireless, there's going to be an increase in weight no matter what. It will be interesting to see what happens with their other shapes, because I know the MP01, the MP01S, and the Outside X are a lot bigger shells, and the VAXEE was originally designed for wireless. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of weight reduction we have in the other ones, how much of a weight bump there's going to be. But overall, the weight is totally fine. It's not that big of a deal. I don't know why everyone's making such a big issue about it. VAXEE has confirmed that the new XEW, and I'm assuming the other models as well, will be using the 3395 sensor, unlike Zowie's models. Rest in peace, Zowie. Now, as I mentioned before, there was a lot of new stuff with VAXEE's wireless tech. So again, if you want to read up on all the cool features and all that kind of stuff, especially all the features of the 3395 and how they're going to be implemented on the wireless versions of the mice, go read VAXEE's press release and watch the video. It's really interesting. I highly recommend you check it out if you like peripheral stuff. But overall, I'm very excited to see what's happening with this. It should be very interesting. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, for those of you who aren't familiar with VAXEE mice, one of the really cool features that I personally really appreciate about them is that they are completely driverless, meaning that there is no software required to run the mice. And somehow VAXEE has made it so that the wireless version of their mice are going to be driverless too, which is crazy. I don't know what kind of craft they pulled off to make that work, but I'm very happy about that, considering, let's be honest, like 65% of mouse software is absolute garbage. I'm looking at you, SteelSeries. Get your together. Come on, it's insane. But overall, very happy to see that they're going to remain driverless. That's a great feature. I'm very happy to see that. Again, there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of stuff. And again, VAXEE's poised to make a really big dent in the market, but there's going to be a lot of ifs and buts with this being their first wireless mouse. There's a lot of questions, so we're gonna have to see when the mice actually hit production and get my hands on one of them to try it out. But off of what I've seen so far, they look very promising, and I'm very excited to see what happens with them. And I have one quick honorable mention I wanted to throw in here before I end the video. I want to quickly talk about the LAMZU Thorn. Now, after the great success of the LAMZU Atlantis, LAMZU decided to make an ergo model, or they're making an ergo model called the LAMZU Thorn. And now, as of recording this video, we know basically nothing about this mouse aside from the dimensions, and that the mouse is going to have a 47-gram weight, which sounds promising on paper, but we don't know anything about specs or anything like that yet. Based on how good the Atlantis was, I'm assuming it's going to be a very popular mouse. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with it, but we know basically nothing else about it right now. Once I get my hands on it, I'm very excited to try it out and see how it compares. I'm interested to see if it's going to be kind of a competitor to Pulsar's offerings in terms of small, lightweight ergos, but we'll see what happens. They're set to go into mass production in late March, early April, so we're going to have to wait till then to find out more about it. But another interesting mention that we'll see how it plays out. You never know, it could be a really good sleeper mouse that a lot of people don't know about, so we'll see what happens. As of right now, January 11th, 2023, that is what I am most looking forward to this year in terms of the peripheral market. Now, obviously, we haven't heard anything from Razer or Viper yet and some other companies, so there's a lot more that could be coming down the pipe later in the year, but overall, 2023 looks insanely stacked for peripherals, and I cannot wait to get my hands on a lot of these mice and try them out. But did I miss anything? Is there anything that was super noteworthy that I missed and looked over? Let me know down in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Hope you have a good one. Peace.